All right, welcome everyone. We will go ahead and get started. I know some folks will be trickling in, and that is absolutely okay. Different people are ending their school day and starting their evening, so they may need a little time to log on.
All right, and thank you all for joining us. We're super excited to get started this evening. So, just some tips and tools. If you've joined us before, these are familiar. If you haven't, welcome, first of all. But also, here's a little overview of some tools that we'll be using throughout the webinar today. So the first thing you'll see is something called Padlet. This is like kind of like Google Jamboard if you know what that's like, but it's an interactive way for us to talk and connect and answer some questions throughout and share some ideas to one another in this virtual space. And then if you're just familiar with Zoom, chat box, and Q&A, those are always a resource to you as well. We'll try to check chat box and Q&A as we go throughout, but we will have a Q&A session at the end. So if you would like to hold your questions till then, that works too. And then finally, if you are interested, this webinar does have closed captioning available. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little version of this icon, CC, and you can go ahead and click those and turn those on if you are interested in using those. So our agenda for this evening, we're gonna, in a minute, just dive into some norms to ground ourselves. We're gonna do a land acknowledgement activity like Erin mentioned earlier. We're going to take some time to define the term culture and talk about culturally relevant pedagogy. Some of you might know it as either culturally relevant or culturally responsive. Those terms can be used interchangeably, but throughout we will be saying culturally relevant pedagogy. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And then we will talk about how to identify something called funds of knowledge and show you all a RIF funds of knowledge survey that you all can use as soon as tomorrow with your class. And then we'll reflect a little bit and we'll close out and share some exciting next steps with you all.
Great. So we have some norms for this evening. These are adapted from the book The Art of Conversation by Margaret Wheatley. I'll read them, and as I'm reading them, think about which one you would like to carry with you throughout this meeting, and go ahead, feel free to enter one of the numbers in the box, what you would like to carry with you throughout this meeting. So number one, we acknowledge one another as equals. We try to stay curious about each other. We recognize that we need each other's help to become better listeners. We slow down so we have time to think and reflect. We remember that conversation is the natural way humans think together, and we expect to get messy sometimes. So if you have one that resonates with you, please feel free to share it in the chat. And more than one is welcome. I love the number fours. I see a lot of number fours this evening, taking time to slow down. Yes.
We will have plenty of opportunities for you all to reflect tonight. So
Yes. And reflecting, being in conversation with each other. That's how we learn. Wonderful. So feel free as we're moving along this evening to return to your intention as frequently as you need to. Okay. As Carly mentioned, we're going to start with a land acknowledgement activity. Land acknowledgements are gaining popularity, particularly in academic spaces. So we wanted to bring this practice to you. So I'm located in San Diego, California. You can see this declaration on image of the declaration on a left-hand side here. On August 29th, 2002, San Diego was officially recognized as Kumeyaay Nation. And if you're unfamiliar with San Diego, it's a very diverse landscape. You have the ocean and beach, of course, but there's also mountains, foresty type of areas, desert type of areas. And Kumeyaay of the past moved across these landscapes and adapted themselves to meet the different variations of the landscape, which I think fits in very well with our topic this evening about using funds of knowledge or cultural approaches to meeting students where they're at, bridging home culture and school culture. This is a culture of people who were meeting the landscape halfway instead of just adapting the landscape to meet their needs as what we typically think of. So for this land acknowledgement this evening, I wanted, as a children's literacy nonprofit, I wanted to draw some attention to some books written by and about Kumeyaay. The first one you see there is called The Painted Rocks by Ruth Alter. And it's about the Piedras Pintadas. It's an archaeological site located in San Diego County. And this story is through the eyes of a young girl and her guide that gives information about Kumeyaay of the past, how they lived, how they built their homes, played games, and made meals, recipes, and etc. Um, if you notice, I'm using terms like Kumeyaay of the past because Kumeyaay people are very much in the present. So we want to make sure when we're using our language that we distinguish when we're talking about past versus present and make sure that we don't say things like the Kumeyaay were. Those kind of past tense verbs uh, contribute to erasure of Indigenous peoples and their cultures. So we want to make sure that when we're talking about Indigenous populations with our students, we distinguish when we're talking about the way peoples lived in the past and how they're currently living. Um, the other book I want to highlight here is My Ancestors' Village by Roberta Labastida, who is an educator herself. She taught elementary school for over 20 years, and she was born and raised in San Diego. She's also authored two curriculums all about local Kumeyaay Indians, and she wrote and illustrated this children's book where she dedicates herself to showing Kumeyaay knowledge and artifact collection in libraries, schools, archaeological sites, and so on. And then I'm a huge fan of using photographs with children. So the last one there is an informational text called Kumeyaay that's written by current Kumeyaay tribes. Oh, thank you. All right.
Thanks, Erin, for kicking us off with that. I learned a lot about San Diego, so thank you so much. All right, so to kick us off with our content for tonight, so we're going to just start with a simple question. Well, it could sound like a simple question, might not have a simple answer. How do you define the term culture? So there's a barcode up on the screen. It'll take you to a Padlet. I'm also going to put the link in the chat for you in a moment. But if you open this Padlet and then click the little plus button at the bottom, you can just write your own post there to answer the question, and then you can like and react to anybody's response that might resonate with you. So again, if you go ahead and scan that code, I'm also going to give you a link. Do not worry.
This is a very much an open-ended question, so there are no
Absolutely.
right or wrong answers to this. Remember thinking about our intentions we learn from each other.
And thank you for your patience. There is the link if you're having issues with the barcode as well. So I'm going to put this up on the screen. Hopefully we can see both here. That way we can see people's answers as it's populating. This is the closest we can get to in person for this setting. So, and the cool thing about these Padlets is if you've been here before, you've heard me say this, but I'm just obsessed with this fact. If you go back and rewatch any of these webinars or access any of these resources, which will be shared to all of you and everyone who registered who couldn't join us today, you can, as you're reviewing the slides, you can always go back to this Padlet and click the link and the barcode and see what people are thinking throughout. People respond to these kinds of questions even days after, so it's super exciting to see. I encourage you to come back and see if anybody resonated with your response as well. So thank you to those of you who are starting to populate some questions and answers and terms. Awesome. And in the chat is also perfectly fine as well. Thank you, Rachel, for setting that example. Perfect. Seeing the word beliefs a lot, traditions, art, language, a way of life. Oh, I like this, like passed down from generations to generations. Wa- Ooh, nice. Ways of interacting in speech, body language, definitely. I think that's a great point. So often that slips our mind that certain types of body language or actions can be either very encouraging in a culture or the opposite. So I think that's a great point. Like culturing cheese, I love that. As you've seen already so far throughout this webinar and throughout the rest of the presentation, we are definitely going to be thinking about all of these things that you all are mentioning and doing a couple of different activities related to hopefully even hear more about these kinds of things and share some examples with one another so we can learn some more specifics too. Food is a big one, definitely. Oh, nice picture. Awesome.
Oh, cool. Way to show off how to use that
Yeah.
part of the platform.
Take a couple more seconds. So thank you all so much for joining us in that grounding activity. Feel free to keep it up on another tab or on your phone, wherever you're answering. Feel free to reflect on these Padlets throughout, but there will be a couple others to come. So looking forward to hearing more of what you all have to say. So most of you already hit a lot of these examples, ways of knowing, being, doing, communicating, values and perspectives. I saw those terms a lot. Traditions, customs, I saw those terms a lot as well. Artifacts, that kind of ties along with the individual who said passed down from generation to generation. Materials, art, languages, and culture is both inside and outside of the classroom. We're going to be talking about that a lot throughout and give you all some tangible resources to begin bridging that gap, which is exactly the title of this webinar, and really bringing in those outside experiences of your unique students into your classroom. So this image on the screen is one of my favorites. It kind of represents the whole idea of culture. Like think of it as like a culture iceberg and all the things that cultures could include. And then the little line right there is everything underneath the surface that you often don't see. So a lot of those things that we set up on the top, they're 100% accurate, of course, and we see those things. Those are probably the most common things that people think of when they think of just culture in general or someone's cultural identity. Those are probably the most common terms that they think of. But there's so many other things that you all started to touch upon before in the Padlet, and all of those other things, body language, values, those are all the things that you don't necessarily often see physically. And you really have to dive in and dig deep to identify those things that are below the surface in your students and really identify how to show out in the classroom.
Thanks, Carly. So we're going to talk a little bit about culturally relevant pedagogy and give you some definitions here. As Carly mentioned at the beginning, you might also hear this as culturally responsive pedagogy or culturally sustaining pedagogy. These are all terms that refer to honoring, recognizing students' culture, and also bringing it into your teaching practice. So this framework was developed by Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings. And I cannot move on without saying that I've met her twice um, at conferences. And I just walked up to her and introduced myself and said, I've incorporated her work into these professional developments and webinars that I do. I think it's an important thing to do if you ever have the opportunity to meet someone whose work that you draw upon. And I know personally I would love to hear it. So hopefully they do as well. But CRP maintains that educators need to be non-judgmental and inclusive of the cultural backgrounds of their students in order to be effective facilitators of learning. I love that word there, facilitators of learning. It absolutely embodies that image that we have at the beginning of a bridge, where you as the teacher are not the holder of all knowledge that you're going to bank or put into students, but rather you're the facilitator creating opportunities for them to embark on their own learning journey. Oh, I love that. It's like hidden rules. Yeah, culture is often hidden. Yeah, like that iceberg image. Wonderful. Um, so here's just another overview. When educators and education leaders lift up their students' cultures, their sources of knowledge, or those hidden rules. I love that. Who said that? Megan, I think was, or sorry, Magali said that in the chat there. They care about it can increase their confidence, their interest, motivation, and academic success. At RIF, we care a lot about students' motivation, particularly their motivation and joy that they find in reading. So this is why this approach resonates really well with us. It also promotes positive racial and ethnic identities, self-esteem, social emotional well-being, and the ability to overcome discrimination. So we've, drawing from the research, have organized it into these different pillars. The first one is on identity and achievement. So this is about affirming students' identity development, bringing in their cultural heritage, offering learning opportunities that pose multiple perspectives, so that your students can see that their perspective or their family values are valued, but that other values exist too. Affirming diversity and a public, or we can say a classroom or school-based validation of home and community cultures. The next one, we're talking about equity and excellence. So this is your dispositions towards your students. Are you approaching your students through an equity lens? Are you incorporating multicultural content into the curriculum? For us at RIF, this often shows up in the book choices that we select. Are you giving equal access to students? And do you have high expectations for all of your students? Now, granted, this might look different for each of the contexts that you're in, but always holding students to their highest level of achievement. And relatedly, developmental appropriateness. I'm very familiar with this because I have an early childhood background where I feel like we really honor developmental appropriateness, and then somewhere along the way it gets lost. This is coming from my personal experiences. We can approach a 3 or 4 year old, 5 year old, saying, "Well, it's based on their age; it's developmentally appropriate." Then somehow in our education system, it seems that we don't recognize as much that a few months difference in birth date can really impact a lot of what a student's developmentally ready to do. This is also taking into account different learning styles. Research is mixed on different learning styles, but you do have students who favor visual approaches to learning, tactile approaches, auditory approaches, and kinesthetic approaches to learning. So having different styles of learning and having different styles of teaching to match. Maybe it's not a learning style, maybe it's a learning preference. However you want to look at it, having varied approaches is important. And then cultural variance in the psychological needs in terms of motivation, morale, engagement, and collaboration. Um, Similar, also, we talk about this a lot in early childhood, but I feel like as students get older, we kind of forget about the whole child because we seem to be focused on academics. But skill development is different in different cultural contexts. Thinking about independence in particular, independence is very much a cultural construct. So families may give their children more or less independence depending on their home culture and how might this show up in the classroom and what can we do as teachers to bridge this between the classroom, school, and the community. Thinking about learning outcomes, how we can support the school as a learning community, not just the child, but the family and extended community as well, and just empowering students. And then my favorite probably is student-teacher relationship. Are you building caring relationships? Is it about interaction? And do you build a classroom atmosphere? Someone had mentioned that culture is norms. We started with norms, so we have created a culture for this webinar today that's shaped around those norms. It's absolutely okay if your classroom culture is slightly different than a student's home culture. This helps them to learn how to bridge and navigate between the different cultures that they'll be interacting with, and that there are different norms that occur in all of those spaces.
All right, thanks, Erin. So before we kick off showing you a couple of awesome RIF resources, we're gonna start off by listening to Luis Moll. He is a famous researcher who kind of coined the concept of funds of knowledge. So we're gonna watch a little bit of a little video here, and he's gonna tell us a little bit about it, and then we're gonna show you how we use it in practice. It's a short video.
I'm Luis Moll, and I'm a professor at the University of Arizona. For several years, we have worked with a concept that we call funds of knowledge. And funds of knowledge has to do with the knowledge base generated by families on the basis of their experiences, especially their work experiences, their social practices, and their social history. So part of the strategies that we use is to visit households and get to know the families, whether we become the learners as opposed to the teachers in that context, in order to document the knowledge base through, as laid out by the experiences of the families that we're working with. There are several advantages, we think, to such an approach, and we're pleased that colleagues in not only in different parts of the U.S. but in other countries are using the concept and adapting it to their own realities. And one of the most interesting areas for development on the use of the concept,
Sorry about that.
I think, is through Head Start activities or other early childhood activities and programs, where the teachers could develop the documentation of funds of knowledge, not only with the families but with the kids, and also the documentation of funds of knowledge of the teachers themselves. It is very important, I think, especially in an early childhood or in a Head Start context, to understand how teachers' experiences, live experiences, interact with the academic knowledge and pedagogical knowledge and concepts they're supposed to master as professional educators. There's always a filter in acquiring these more academic concepts, and that filter are the social and emotional experiences of our lives. So in a sense, the teacher's funds of knowledge become part and parcel of that element needed to assimilate the pedagogical knowledge and become an outstanding teacher. Luis.
He said, before you go, Erin, I just want to say, he says so many things that like are what we already said and slash going to make connections to later. So I just love that video. So, but you can take it away now.
I was going to echo the same thing. And I, again, have to throw this out there. I have not met Dr. Moll, but I did email him once and he responded to my email. I say that because sometimes you hear never meet your heroes. I actually agree with that. If you love someone's work, and you incorporated it into your own practice, you should absolutely reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be honored to hear from you. I know I would. So yeah. But he touched on this idea of incorporating students' families' work into the classroom and curriculum. We'll talk about that a little bit. He talked about the developmental appropriateness of students and using a survey. We'll talk about that. Another idea is about using a survey not only with students' families, but with students themselves. It's a wonderful idea. But here's some ideas of how this might look in a classroom context. And we've broken this up by some disciplines to you. So writing, how-to books, that's a form of informational text. You can hit a lot of those informational text standards there about making, and this is drawing from a research study, which we will include in the resources for this, pipitoria candies or gnocchi. So in one of the studies that we drew from this, a student's parent was really skilled in making these candies. So they were actually able to go into the classroom, teach the students how to make these candies, and then students can make a how-to book about how to make candy. Art class, create a class quilt that a student's grandmother or someone in their family can sew together. This is a great way to honor a lot of different cultures and bring it together in a visually representative way. Science, making kimchi, which is a popular dish, and testing pH balance, because that's something that you draw from science to make kimchi. And math. Boxing is a sport that's popular in a lot of cultures. So there's a lot of geometry lessons that can correspond with boxing, such as finding perimeter and area of a boxing ring. Um, so how can you find out about what students' cultures are going on at home so that you can bring this into the classroom? Inviting families in, of course. Also, as Dr. Mole shared, um, going and doing home visits if that's something that's available to you, where you're the learner and learning from students' families and trying to bring that into your classroom. Having books in your classroom library that show different um, people, values, roles, customs, and languages. Oh yeah, good point. Making candy can also be related to STEM too. So there's a lot of interdisciplinary connections that can be made here.
Awesome. So we're gonna take another reflection break, and in a moment I'll send the link to this Padlet, but there's the barcode for you, and there's two questions on there. The first one is, how can educators identify their students' funds of knowledge? So what are some ideas? I know we kind of just chatted through some, and so did Dr. Mole, but what are some other ways? And then similarly, on another note, in what ways have you already identified your students' funds of knowledge within your practice? Something that we love to say during these webinars is we are not here to tell you everything. We want to hear and learn from what you all are doing, and we highly value that. And I know everybody who comes to these also highly values that. So we like to take a moment to hear what you all are doing, what's working, what challenges do you have, and then after this, we will talk about some resources that we have that you can integrate into your practice as well. So the link is coming your way. And there it is in the chat. And then again, this QR code will also take you there. Something that resonates with me always when I watch that video too, from Dr. Mole, is the term like flexible, and it's supposed to be adaptable to your needs and the needs of your students. So there's not one way to collect, there's not one right way, I should say, to collect these types of information. So you know your students best at the end of the day. So what are some things that you all have done that might have worked already? I'm going to bring this here so we can see some things populate as we go. Awesome. Sending pictures, and especially sending pictures into the classroom to then be posted in the classroom, is something that I've always loved to do, and families love sending in photos of them and their kiddos too to put in the classroom. And then the kiddos also love to see themselves and their families in this space as well. Awesome. Engage in home and school, really bridging that gap. I'm gonna make this a little bit so you can see more. There we go. Oh yeah, asking for vocabulary words in their own home language, absolutely. And even having those visuals like within the classroom too, like maybe labeling things with different languages as well. Some connections to music. Yeah, music and art is always very popular and engaging, definitely. See lots of little robots typing up here, so I'll give you all some time. Yeah, really embedding students' values in the classrooms and traditions in the classroom, absolutely. So not just learning about them and taking a day to talk about them, but really embedding them within your classroom. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, dismissal is a huge time of day to learn about a child's family. That is where I got so much information and just really was able to make connections was at 3:15 when they left, but that was really the time when they really felt that that was the designated time to have conversations and really engage. So families also looked forward to that time as well because families are busy. We're all busy, so any little opportunity counts. Oh, that's awesome. Sending home a questionnaire. So maybe it'll look similar to what we're going to show you soon. Bringing in holiday traditions. Oh, publishing it. That's really cool. Home visits. Yeah, play observations. You can learn a lot through that as well. Community circle time. I saw a lot of you mention taking time in the morning, which is perfect. Show and tell. Definitely that can really bring in like a tangible thing as a part of a culture too. So again, I encourage you all to well, thank you, first of all, so much. These are awesome. This is always my favorite part is seeing what you all have to say. I encourage you to keep these up and come back and revisit them throughout, but also after this and see what other people are saying and get some other ideas from them as well. So thank you all for sharing. So, yeah. So you all shared a lot of these already, but I'll just also highlight essays, presentations, projects that are based on students' backgrounds and family heritages. So all of those like specific things that you all mentioned are perfect examples, like bringing in artifacts, creating timelines, creating books and publishing them about their culture. All of those are right within that realm. So that's awesome. Home visits, inviting families. We talked about that. Well, we talked a lot about home visits, but also inviting them into the space is just as powerful. And funds of knowledge home survey. So what you all have been waiting for, all the resource dumps. So in a moment, I'm going to toss it to Erin, and she's going to walk us through Riff's version of funds of knowledge survey. Like we mentioned before, and Dr. Mole also mentioned, this idea is meant to be flexible and adaptable. So this is our version and gives you space to be as creative and flexible as you all would like as well.
Perfect. Yeah, so as Carly mentioned, we've um, done background research and we've developed our own funds of knowledge survey based on looking at the research and other survey templates. You are absolutely welcome to use this survey exactly as it is. We will send it to you, or just take some questions and ideas from it and create your own survey. And this is something that you can send home and complete with families, or you can do with students in the classroom to give some ideas about how to incorporate their family and home culture into your classroom and curriculum. And you'll get everything that we mentioned in the follow-up email to this webinar, as well as the recording. So here's an example that I used when I was teaching first grade. So you can see a little snippet from our Funds of Knowledge planning worksheet here. We call it a planning worksheet. So here we broke down what the home and community practice was. And as Dr. Mole mentioned in his talk, building on students, families, jobs that they do is a great example. And then how can we apply that to the classroom? So for me, I reverse engineered this a little bit. Rather than just giving out the survey, I actually kind of broke it down into what the thematic units or science standards that we'd be covering in all of first grade were. And then sent this home and asked for students' families to either put in what kind of home practices or what kind of connections they can make to their jobs. So I got this one back from Justin's dad, who shared that he installs car sound systems. So he knew from the survey that we were doing a light and sound unit, and he offered to bring in some different size sound systems into the classroom so that students could see sound and vibration. So when we were doing this unit on sound waves, which was part of next generation science standards, Justin's dad came in and brought in the sound system. We used rice in a tin foil and we put that over the different size of the speakers so students could actually observe the way that the size of the speakers and the different sizes of the sound waves moved the rice, and they could visualize it that way. So it's just one example of how you might be able to use this kind of a planning worksheet for your classroom curriculum.
Thanks, Erin, for that lovely example. I love that example. All right, so this brings us to the end of our time this evening, but before you go, we do have a couple of announcements that we will walk through after we give you all this QR code and Padlet link. So these are kind of our typical closeout questions. What did you learn? How has your thinking changed? And how will you use this information in your practice? So what did you learn? How has your thinking changed? And how will you use this information in your practice? There is the Padlet in the chat.
And I used to use these questions with students as well. It's really great for differentiation because I'm sure all of you have experienced that student who you ask, what did you learn today? I didn't learn anything. I knew all of this already. Okay, so maybe you weren't presented with any new information. Certainly some of you have probably heard this all again, but maybe we presented it in a different way that resonated with you. Maybe it's something you haven't integrated in a while that you want to return back to. Maybe your thinking's changed about it, or maybe you have a new practice that you learned from one of your peers who attended this webinar today that you want to incorporate into your practice. So this just gives you some differentiation that we can all learn from professional development, regardless of where we're coming from.
So we'll take about a minute or so, and then you are more than welcome to keep this open and continue to reflect as we go through some announcements. And you won't want to miss it, so stay on for another minute. We have a lot of exciting things. Especially based off of what you guys are saying in the chat right now. I know you'll appreciate this announcement. So, and thank you. That's awesome to hear. It makes me want to cry. Good tears though. Awesome. Yeah, bookmark it. It won't go away. You can use it next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do find beginning of the year is
Mhm.
often a great time to use, for example, the survey, especially if you haven't fully built out all your curriculum units for the school year. If you can get that information ahead of time, it's a great way to inform the way you develop your lesson plans for the rest of the school year.
Someone else loved your sound waves activity too. It is so special. It's so unique.
Um, and I mean, Justin's smile, I'll never forget when he brought his dad in and introduced him to the class and introduced the activity because they had practiced how to do the activity together at home before they came in and led the class activity. That to me is priceless.
Hmm. Definitely. Well, again, definitely feel free to still reflect, but we want to make sure we go over some announcements and have some time if you all would like to ask any questions. So we'll come back to the Q&A in a second. So looking ahead, we have one more webinar that's part of this series. So don't worry, it's not our last webinar. So this past school year, we focused our Every Educator Counts webinar series, which is what you all are in right now, around family engagement strategies. So we have our last one about designing your family literacy event at the end of March at 7 p.m. Eastern. But we are planning a new Every Educator Counts series to begin in September. So like I said, this year we focused on family engagement. Next year, we're going to focus on some more research and practice for your classroom as well. So shifting from family engagement and going more towards research and practice, more academic focused. And we still have I have a long list of announcements. I'm making sure I get all of them. We still have our every family counts and every book count series. There's plenty of those to come. We are building out our schedule that you have seen probably that looks just like this with all of the registration links. We're building that out right now for the next like April to the following April. So be on the look for that, and you will get a copy of everything that was shared today, as well as all of the links after. Usually comes around 2 days after the end date of the webinar. It'll be from Zoom. And then some of the resources. I don't know, Erin, if you wanted to highlight any of these, but I think these are pretty much the overall webinars page for you all, some quick guides for educators. This is what Erin was mentioning earlier, the native land digital. So if you, I actually think I have it open. Sorry, Erin, I'm stealing the show, but
No
I
worries.
have it open already. So this is the interactive map. We've used this before, and I think I've also walked you through this before, but you can search for any location right here and it will tell you what native tribe had lived on that location. So that's where Erin and I have gathered our information from, and then we're able to dive in more research about. And then the Funds of Knowledge survey is linked for you all as well. And then we will link the research that Erin was referring to in here for you all as well. And now I see some questions coming through already. Yes, you absolutely can. I will share the link to the archived webinars right there for you. This one will also be up there eventually. So if you want to share, it'll be up there probably tomorrow morning. Our web content associate works very quick, so we appreciate her. So it'll probably be up there tomorrow, and then you'll receive all of the resources within the next day or so.
And as Carly mentioned, this is an Every Educator Counts family engagement series. So this is actually 6 out of number 7 in the series. The next one, Planning Your Family Literacy Event, is our final in this family engagement focus for this series. So you can definitely go on and watch all the archived ones if you want to go back to look at how do we define families, what are best practices for family engagement, and the other topics that we cover.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. And I am very excited because we just got a question about summer reading resources, and you are in the right place because we are right now putting together our summer reading campaign that's going to have plenty of resources for you all to share if you are running some types of camps or if you're school librarians and you're doing summer school. We do have a summer reading campaign that we launch every year, and it is in the works right now. So if hopefully you are signed up for our emails, but if you aren't, now you are, because you signed up for these for this webinar, so you will receive the link. So super exciting.
And
We
to give a
just
little sneak peek, it's an 8-week summer. Each week has a different theme. We'll have a book list of 10 books that align to that theme with related activities, and a read aloud from Carly each week for students who want to come to the Zoom and listen to a book read aloud.
yes, very exciting. See if there's any other questions. Yeah, and you're very welcome. If you don't have any questions, you're free to log off, and thank you all for joining us, but we'll stick around to see if anyone has any questions. Thank you, you're welcome. Just making sure there's no other questions. I think we're good.
Thank you all. We really appreciate you attending.
Yeah, thank you, we really do. And yeah, be on the lookout for everything, and we're excited to hear you're excited about summer, so are we. All right, well, thank you everyone. Have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye.